Hello, I'm Scotty the Rocker Engineer. This is the second episode of my channel. Welcome everybody. If you saw the first one, I'm glad you tuned in again. However, if you are here for the first time, I suggest you to watch the first episode as well to have a full picture what this channel is all about. Today, I will tell my solar power story from the initial considerations, how can you decide if it's something for you to go for, and how can you make sure that the payback period as short as possible without turning yourself from a slave to the energy companies to a slave of savings. As I told in the first episode, I've been living with solar panels for a bit more than 2.5 years now, learning a thing or two about such system on the go, which none of the salesmen told me. Actually, they told some of funny stuff though. I will share those with you and I will explain how I could achieve that my system paid for itself within 2.5 years. I hope you will find this channel simply to understand, entertaining, but still enlightening and instructional. So, solar system installation has been a long time coming to me because I always hated to see the gigantic figures on my electricity bills while the sun was showering me with free energy all the time, most of the time. However, some 20 years back, to install a meaningful size of solar system required more than twice the size of roof area than today, and the cost would have been easily 10 times more. Back those days, such installations were more like a vanity project than a well thought through investment. At the back end of 2021, however, I picked up this subject again, partially because we moved in a house where we planned to spend many years to come, and equally had a good roof area, and of course, out of curiosity. As a starting point, I looked at my expected yearly electricity consumption. Bear in mind, we still didn't have a full year in this house back then. No smart meter was installed, my energy company has just went bust, so I couldn't really get hold of my billing history either. Then I tried to figure out what size of system was physically possible to put up. I used a pretty simple online calculator, which after a few questions and some map adjustment, suggested that with 16 panels, total installed capacity around 6,000 watt, I could generate around 6,000 kilowatt hour electricity a year. I tried to find that tool now to show you, but after browsing a few hours on the internet, I gave it up. Don't get me wrong, there are mountains of so-called solar calculators available, but the vast majority only there to get you to the point when they ask for your contact details to send your results, and if you give those, then all hell's breaking loose. You will get calls from solar companies to try to fix a home visit appointment pretty much 24/7. There are some calculators which are asking so many questions that you probably cannot properly reply at this point of time. I tried a few, they came up with absolutely outlandish results. Some suggested even 22 years repayment period. For sure, I entered something wrongly. Anyhow, I think today I would just start from looking the physical size available on my roof and how many panels could be installed. As a rule of thumb, you can use 1.1 meter wide and 1.8 meter tall panel size. Considering about 400 watt per panel's capacity, you will have a figure to start with. With that figure in mind, it makes sense to collect a few quotes. On these quotes, you will receive two valuable info for you for further project evaluation. One is the cost, obviously, and the second is the estimated yearly generation figure from the proposed installation. Some might will instead insist to come and see you in person before they quote anything, some will just give you a quote online. If you're not that familiar with this whole how it works, what to expect, and don't have tons of time to spend on browsing and learning on the internet, then maybe get absolutely confused, a few face-to-face visits can be useful to hear the story from people who are effectively working with these systems and see some different interpretations. Some key takeaways from this that the battery pack is key to maximize your potential yearly saving, how the proposed system works, and for sure, if you want to make money from export, which is crucial for your return, what are the regulatory hoops and loops which the proposer will sort out for you. The first step from your side is definitely to ask your supplier to install a smart meter, which normally free of charge. Of course, you will get the sales pitch as well, like energy prices only will go up and your house value will be higher with solar system when you will sell it. Now the second one for me is simply a very wishful thinking at best, if not just pulling your legs. I mean, if you were selling your house the day after the installation completed, then maybe, right? However, if I were you, your prospective buyer, I would be very suspicious. Why on earth you want to get rid of the house after such an investment? But I don't really think after, let's say, 15 years, a not very new or modern at that point of time solar system will make noticeable difference to your house value. One of the most interesting experiences I've got with a sales guy was the following. His company was dealing with polycrystalline solar panels, which generally speaking less efficient and supposed to be cheaper than the monocrystalline panels, which are newer type. I thought, let's see what are the price differences. By the time, I already had a few quotes spreading between just below 9 grand to 10.5, and all was monocrystalline. This polycrystalline guy arrived in a quite well-kitted BMW 5 Series, a young edition as well. Immediately, I kind of felt it was going to be a waste of time. During the discussion, I asked about poly versus monocrystalline, and he said, oh yes, the poly is less efficient, but that's only noticeable in the laboratory test conditions, not in real life. Yeah, right. Eventually, he put together a quote and said, normally my system would cost me 17 grand, but because their installer are working in my neighborhood the following week, they could install my system as well on the very same day, which is naturally a considerable cost saving for them. So because of that, then and there, or here and now, he could give me the system for 12.5 grand only. You know, I'm told sometimes that I didn't show my age, but honestly, do I look like I was born yesterday? The sad part is that I can see this tactic works much more than it should. Probably a 2-3 grand difference doesn't even sound too big, but it has enormous impact on the repayment period. I will show you later. As I said, the other important info is the expected yearly generation figure. Now, back in the time of the wildest period of the domestic solar business, the sales companies could put forward whatever estimation they thought, and as a result, many customers ended up with disappointment when they saw the reality. By the time I started my journey, however, there was already some unified, regulated way to estimate the yearly yield and the payback period. So what I was given very pretty much was in line with each other's and with a figure I've got from the earlier mentioned online tool. It still proved to be on the optimistic side of the story as well. At that moment in time, I calculated around 8 years predicted repayment period, which I wasn't very impressed with. It was like I knew this was the right way ahead, but 8 years. So I put it on hold. Mind you, I paid some 19p for 1 kilowatt hour electricity then, which was already elevated though after my previous supplier, surprise, had gone bust. But by April 2022, after Putin kicked the boozer's door open in Ukraine, my electricity unit prices started to climb to 29.5p. So my repayment period prediction suddenly reduced to 5 or so years. So then I went for it. Of course, I hoped very much the war in Ukraine won't last for 5 years, but I had another plans how to reduce further the repayment period. There are a few things to know. Even if someone at home all the time, on a yearly basis, around 60% of the generation will be exported. At least this is my numbers. Why is that? In summertime, you will generate far more than you consume for sure. Also, what wasn't highlighted to me, the charge and discharge rate of these batteries around halfway of their capacity. In my case, my 4.8 kWh battery pack can only take or deliver up to 2.4 kilowatts. While it is true that your generation first go to fulfill your house needs, and the excess goes to charge your batteries, and only the excess above that goes for export, but, for example, if at a certain point of time you generate 5 kilowatt and your house uses only zero point 0.6 kilowatt, even if your battery is empty, it will take only 2.4 kilowatt, and the rest 2 kilowatt will be exported. Similarly, when you run on battery, you might need to export. So it's important to make sure you receive the best export tariff available. Then, try to reduce your import cost. That time, whichever export price I could achieve, that was less than the import cost. From around mid-October till mid-March, however, it still made a lot of sense to look for some two-rate electricity tariff, which gives you lower price during the night, so you can charge up your battery cheap and run your house during the day from that. Economy 7 springs in mind immediately. Today, however, you can get fixed 15 or 16.5p for your export and pay only 1376 or 1453p overnight. But you only get the best export tariff if you are with the same supplier on import as well, so need a right balancing. In this case, also you can run some high consumer household equipment during the lower price period, of course. Obviously, it isn't sustainable to start the washing machine, let's say 1 o'clock a.m., then wake up at 3 o'clock to move your washing to the tumble dryer, and at 5 start ironing, and in the meantime maybe prepare your Sunday roast. But for instance, the dishwasher can peacefully work overnight. Generally speaking, in order to make sufficient saving with Economy 7 tariff, you will have to make sure that at least 40% of your electricity usage takes place during the nighttime off-peak hours. But with overnight battery charging, that is pretty much given. Let's see some numbers, shall we? Let's say your current consumption is 4400 kilowatt hour, which costs you with the current tariff a bit over 1100 pounds a year. If you switch to Economy 7, let's say your night use 20%, 880, with again current unit prices, the total cost of yours gonna be a little bit below 1300 pounds, which means you would pay more than today, so it doesn't make any sense. If you consider a system like mine, for instance, you will have 6000 kilowatt hour generation a year. With a 4.8 kilowatt hour battery capacity, you can charge around 1500 kilowatt hour overnight. Your night use gonna be the same. This is the amount which will go directly to use or charge your battery during the day, and this is the amount what you will export. So you will end up without any daily consumption. So looking at these charges, basically what you end up with, instead of spending 1100 pounds for your electricity, you get back or earn 270 pounds, which means your yearly saving will be 1400 pounds. Now, based on 9000 pounds solar installation cost, it means your system will pay for itself a little bit just below 6.5 years. Now again, if you spend much more, let's say 12,000 pounds on your solar, then your repayment period will be more than 2 years longer. Back those days, when I told my supplier I wanted to go on Economy 7, they said I needed a different meter. I told them, hey, I just had my shiny new smart meter installed by them, which sends them half an hour reading, and it is a must for export. So eventually they agreed to keep it. It wasn't a smooth ride, on the other hand. I had to call them time and again because they struggled with some technical reasons to get automated Eco 7 billing out of my setup, which I still don't really understand why. They said they didn't get a flow or something, whatever it means. However, during every call, I made them confirm that once they will be able to sort it out, I will be charged at Echo 7 tariff from the day when I said I wanted to change. It went on from November to March like this. In March, I switched to another tariff with them. To make that change possible, they needed to close financially my Eco 7 period, so they worked with the energy specialist and they offered a figure to pay, which actually was better than what I was estimated. On the top of that, they offered compensation for all of my troubles. Coming back to the plan to further reduce my repayment period, I thought, what if, instead of exporting my generated surplus and take the money and run, I could use some of that to replace some of my other, preferably more valuable energy source. Now, heating kind of naturally jumps in mind, but to justify such a project is a bit challenging. In one of other later period, I will show you my investigation on heat pump. On the other hand, EV looked much more promising. HMRC advisory fuel rate for a diesel like my Red Gorgeous today is 13p per mile. The same source advises 7p per mile for an EV based on a little bit higher than 3.5 miles per kilowatt-hour consumption and based on the current off-gem electricity price cap. Needless to say, both are a bit optimistic, but let's use it for now. It means that 1 kilowatt-hour generation could cover more than 3.5 miles, which would cost with a diesel around 46.5p, so practically I could save 3 times more compared to the price for the export. On the top of that, since November 23, I've been on an EV tariff with 6-hour off-peak 7p per kilowatt-hour unit price, importantly, without any crazy peak pricing, and I received 15p per kilowatt-hour for my export. That practically meant that each and every kilowatt-hour I exported bought me more than 2 kilowatt-hour night charge, with which I could cover more than 7.5 miles, so the saving compared to the diesel was just a little bit under a quid. Of course, a project to source an EV must be justified on its own right. No point to save here, let's say, 2,000 pounds a year, but spend 3,000 pounds more compared to sourcing and running an ICE car. In the next episode, I will talk you through on that. Now let's get back to the Excel. Let's say everything is the same from generation and house consumption perspective, but with a car you can enjoy a much lower night tariff, and this is the best export tariff currently available on the market. Since I had my EV, I clocked 18,000 miles in it a year, almost never used public charger. If you do the same in a diesel, that would cost 23-40 pounds to fuel according to HMRC mileage rate. On the EV, actually, I spent overnight tariff 350 pounds to do these trips. So the total figures here, savings from the diesel and the saving from the electricity, sums up to 2,500 pounds. So if I compare this saving to the situation I didn't do anything, I still would pay 1,100 pounds for electricity and for diesel, blah blah blah. So my yearly saving adds up to 3,600 pounds. Based on that yearly saving, if I spend 9,000 pounds on my solar installation, payback period is 2.5 years. Now you might say that you don't do more than 10,000 miles a year. Let's see what that means. Right. Basically, everything is the same on the top, but now your fuel cost with the diesel would be only 1,300 pounds, what you see, and your EV charge overnight will be only 191 pounds. So still, on a yearly basis, on electricity and diesel, you save more than 1,500 pounds. So the total saving compared to not doing anything, your yearly saving almost 2,700, which translates to 3 and a third year of repayment period based on £9,000 expenditure and a little bit below 4.5 year repayment period based on £12,000 expenditure. Cool, huh? Just stay for a few more minutes before you would run and place an order for your solar system and EV. Despite this is about solar, the story isn't exactly that sunny. You will have losses. The so-called round-trip efficiency of a typical solar batteries is around 90%, which means if you use 100 kWh to charge it up, you will get only 90 kWh when you discharge it. The inverter, based on the instruction manual at least, has 97.5% efficiency, so you lose when you invert your DC generated from your solar panel to AC to use in your house or export. It will manifest as you would have a higher consumption. I mean, if you add together your import, your solar yield, and take away your export, you will get higher figure than your consumption today. Let's see what dent it causes to our repayment period. So let's consider the losses in increased consumption, a bit more than 10%. I cannot give you exact figure, as I said, I don't know how much my house would have consumed over a year without doing anything. I know, however, that compared to the prediction, my generation is 15% less. Battery night charge remains the same, night use go up a little bit, and your export remain the same. And you end up with some daily consumption. Considering 10k miles drive a year, the repayment period will climb from 3 years and 4 months, yeah, to a little bit over 3.5 years, which is practically 2 months. I don't think that is a deal breaker. So, what if you don't go for an EV? Well, you will stuck with Eco 7 tariff and probably with a supplier giving only 15p, so your repayment period will be above 7 years, practically 7 months longer than without considering losses. Now before you think I just made it up, here are my true figures. It's a pretty big Excel chart, but the point is here that this red number shows balance on my cost each and every month. And as you can see, as of May, my system still owed me £4,800 if I don't consider the electric vehicle savings. However, if I consider the savings coming from not spending on diesel and still go from A to B, this figure shows how my balance changed over this period. And as you can see, by mid-May 25, my system basically paid for itself. Again, this is a big Excel chart and I don't want to go through each and every cells. If you are interested in deeper, let me know in the comment section. Yes, an EV is a big enabler, but as I said, it has to be justified on its own right. This is all for today. I hope you found it simple to understand, entertaining, but still enlightening and instructional. Don't forget to check out my first episode if you haven't done yet. Next week I will be back with my EV story. I hope you will join me. Until then, have a great time.